Hello, my Taurus friends. It's been a really powerful year. Special in its own way, I would say, for all of us. Has its own flavor. And the feeling of growth and change, I think, has challenged all of us to vision past anything we've ever done before. And I know for me, I've been growing a lot and changing a lot, and yet I got called to sit here in our ritual space and to commune with you. So we're here. And this September is full of magic, I would say, clarity and knowing and connectiveness. But it's also a month of initiation, I think, into deeper understanding of the fact that we have to work with the mystery rather than trying to solve the mystery all the time. And that's a theme that I noticed right away as I tapped into your energy. Of course, we start off this month in Virgo season with the Sun and Venus moving through there, a fellow earth sign, heart chakra lit up Taurus. I love it. I love a Taurus with a lit up heart that's feeling that creative, juicy flow. And Virgo season can offer that. We also have a full moon in Pisces, which is going to be 11th house, right? So this is about how you've changed when it comes to communing with your community and what you want that to look like. It's a really nice time to just kind of look around at how you've grown and changed this year in that regard. And it's a very dreamy, watery full moon, and I will be getting into that in more detail very, very soon, right here, if you're looking for info on that. And then the other element of this month is the Mercury retrograde. It starts on September 9th in Libra, in your 6th house energy, which is so much about how we show up in this life and what's working for us in our real routines, in the way that a day feels, in a way that our giving of ourselves in life feels. And so we're going to be having some review here about that. And I think this is such a useful space to do that in. Later in the month, Mercury retrograde is going to go back into Virgo. And there again, there's going to be some review about how you share of your heart, how you share of your talents, your gifts, all of that energy, all the energy you put into the external world is going to have a real chance to integrate and for you to understand a little bit more deeply. Now, during this Mercury retrograde, we're going to have the sun shifting into Libra during the equinox, this time of balancing and calibration. And then we're going to have a new moon there, Venus moving into there. So we're going to have a lot of energy over in Libra by the end of the month. And Libran energy, once again for you, is about what life feels like here when we're here and we're doing it in the details, in the day-to-day routines and our rituals and our habits. And I think this actually leads to something really, really deep. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, actually, because the mundane, right, is magical, and the mundane is a doorway through which we understand our spirits more deeply. And one of the messages that came up for me when I was thinking about these themes that are moving through for you in the month of September, I was thinking about how our culture likes things to be put at right angles, put everything pulled together. You know, jigsaw puzzles, for example, are really fun. I love a good jigsaw puzzle because, you know, I like my quiet, mature activities. But, you know, the thing with the jigsaw puzzle is the understanding here is that there's all these pieces and they fit. And we spend time on it. Eventually, all the pieces are in there. And I think sometimes it's easy to start to think about our life and our becoming and our transformation in the same way, where it's like we almost feel like as life keeps going, like, why can't I just nicely put the puzzle pieces back, especially after a couple of stressful years or after a big series of transformations? It can kind of feel like we had a puzzle, we had a picture that of ourselves, of how we were doing it, that was fitting together, and now we're trying to put those puzzle pieces back together and we can't do it, and it can feel really frustrating. And I think this is because we've been culturally trained to kind of get back, always kind of call back to some form that seems familiar. However, I was thinking about how in life, like, well, there's never a true return. Of course, there's the return of us to our spirits and our souls. There is coming home to that vaster truth. But when it comes to just us being humans living our lives, there's never like everything's back the way that it was, right? We're always evolving and becoming. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves in thinking about the mundane and the routine is to like stop trying to make things the same as they may have been once. Even in the subtlest ways, I've caught myself doing this so many times where I'll think about me in like 2018 or something, or early 2019. And I'll think about like what I was doing and how I showed up for work and, what I was interested in and how it felt. And I'll just be like, why can't I get things to work the same way? And, of course, I live in a different country. I am married now. Like, there are a lot of, like, just quite literal things where it's like, what do you think is going to happen, Sarah? Do you think you're going to suddenly be living in an apartment in the southwest of the US, like, alone doing the same things? No, of course not. I have grown and been initiated into so much stuff. The Tower. Okay. Leo got this card too, and before we continue, first of all, the Tower has been with Taurus for a little while. Uranus is working with you. And yes, I think we've had this discussion before. But if you're new here, these tools are not here for trauma. These tools are not here to set us up to have nervous systems that are at a wreck looking for the things that are going to hurt us. And that is not what we are doing here. The Tower has a very important symbolic alchemical process, and it's important. The Five of Pentacles. And so when we're working with this, all we're doing is we're using this as a mirror. You may relate to it. You may also be like, and that's what's interesting about this work. And Six of Swords. Okay. I got to pull one more. We can't leave it there. Hierophant. This card's been coming up a lot. Okay. Speaking of not trying to put the puzzle pieces back together, this is really interesting because here's the thing. These two cards actually have to do a lot with old patterning. The Tower speaks specifically to an old pattern, an old structure, an old prison that is being broken open. In the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille was really, really symbolically important. Even though there were like 3 prisoners in there and it wasn't actually the state institution that is purported to be. And it was quite a violent, not very cute destruction of an institution. The symbolic importance of it there was that there was this suffocating state, right? And I'm not saying that we need to be I'm not talking about that, but the symbolism here is very similar in the Tower in that this is about structures that are imprisoning us or keeping us stuck. Now, this can be on a social, cultural level. This can also, so often when we are in a place where we can no longer maintain the status quo of something that we think we have to, and we don't even fit that shape anymore, and we're craving the freedom from it. For me, this is tied to, the Tower is always important to look at in context of the reading. The Five of Pentacles is the worthlessness that we sometimes feel. This is a version of the haunted house, as I like to call it. The perspective here is that we are locked out from the divine, from love, from safety, from resources. And so many of us live with this core patterning and wound. I mean, the vast majority of us have this. It's a part of experiencing this individual human life. It just is there. And what I'm seeing here is that sometimes when we're trying to put those puzzle pieces back the same way, we're also trying to replicate, even if it's painful, something that's familiar. And one thing that I notice when this kind of energy comes up is all we're being asked to do here is witness it. Notice the textures and colors. See what it's doing. Play around with it. Notice if you feel like you're growing and you're changing and your shape isn't the same. And you're wanting to kind of get back in the tower, get back into the locked out position because it's familiar, it's comfortable. It's the way your brain knows that you're being on alert. all of those things, it's just a time to look at that, because you are actually being asked to go to new shores. And this is really, I think, on a spiritual, energetic, emotional, mental level more than anything else, Taurus. The Six of Swords is, you just think about the cards we were just looking at with all their intensity, right? These like really intense colors and visuals of being cast out, and those core woundings about acceptance and worth and safety. And we get in the boat in Six of Swords and we're going to another shore. We're being asked and invited to another landscape. And the Hierophant is a card associated with Taurus. This is a very grounded, centered card where we come to a deeper maturity level of knowing that in choosing and really dedicating ourselves to the craft of building up new connections to spirit, new storylines that don't have to do with being locked out, new storylines and new skill sets that have to do with regulating our nervous system and creating from new narratives is so important. And sometimes I think, the jigsaw puzzle we are trying to put back in isn't the puzzle we really want to be solving. And I think in some ways this reading is like saying, you keep looking over there to that thing that you're trying to recapture when you're really being asked to direct your focus to a new landscape. And this can be really subtle. I mean, this is not always about the big storms of our external lives. This is often something that we are grappling with here in our most intimate personal space inside of ourselves. So I just want you to know that this is about you being allowed to choose to feel safe and to practice into that, and to know it's not about perfection. It's not about feeling safe 100% of the time. It is about being able to witness our whole evolution and then noticing that we don't want to rebuild some of the things we thought we wanted to rebuild. It's a process, and this is a really potent month for those breakthroughs and those clarifiers that help us see how we have grown and why we don't want to keep returning to the same story, and why we want to build new stories. With that, I would love to see you over on Patreon. I do weekly teachings there. It's really easy to sign up and leave at any time. So the door is always open for you to join there. I'd love to see you there. You can also find me on my website and on my Instagram, of course. There's only one true Sarah Verba. I'd also love to see you here. We will be having so many deep discussions in the coming weeks and months. And I hope you have a beautiful September coming up.